Hello and welcome to the first episode of the next series that I am creating called, what am I calling it? Cosmic Cliff Notes. Yes, Cosmic Cliff Notes. So in the previous versions, what we did was we did Cliff Notes or Clifton's Clicks, your Cliff Notes to the cosmos, and we explored a bit of faces of the future and what that container looks like. And after several weeks of being on pause in terms of airing information, the opposite has been occurring. So much information and structure has been received and really launched and birthed this new series called Cosmic Cliff Notes. I will get that name. Um, and the reason why I call it Cosmic Cliff Notes is because it it's at the cutting edge of what's out there, as far as I'm aware. And if it resonates with certain ideologies, then that's absolutely what I invite to bring into the space, whether it be people or resources to explore. But it goes beyond our current understanding of reality, or at least the mainstreams. That's why it's cosmic, because it goes beyond ourselves and our relationship to the planet, to our relationship to the universe, to time, to multiple dimensions, to parallel universes, and infinite realities that are occurring. A lot of this has overlaid to quantum theory and quantum university, as well as Vedic texts. And what's interesting is those at the cutting edge of meditation, mysticism, shamanism, channeling, emerald children, indigo babies, rainbow children, all these different prophecies, Mayan, Aztec, Incan, etc. Um, it's really a space in a container that invites these things, even aliens. And what is an alien, right? At the main point is inviting everything and anything into this container because it can handle it. And definitely, how you do that is through constant growth and synthesis of what's happening. And it's this beautiful fractalization of uh, energy that is being cognized in your consciousness, um, ordered, and then moving forward from a more structured being to receive more energy. And while you have this growth and receipt of energy, you have a structuring that happens that helps you cognize what's happening. And ultimately, the synthesis of that cognition is deemed love, and it can also be deemed as some other things. But that's the core essence of what I'm using here. And really, it's about using love to guide you to truth through the distillation, reflection, and structuring of reality to be able to receive greater light, greater truth, ultimately leading to the cosmic truth, which is what this is all about, leading to that. And what you can see in many cases is a need to break the mold, break the structure. And that often occurs with transcendent experiences, like the first time you drank alcohol, or maybe did a psychedelic drug, first time you maybe had sex, the first time you just felt it, you could achieve something that you didn't believe in that you could achieve before, um, or you believe in a particular structure and that structure breaks. It is ultimately what that means. And that structure could be a limiting structure. Um, it normally is a limiting structure. That's what structure does. It contains, it's that masculine energy to contain the feminine energy that flows through it. And the synthesis of it expands our consciousness. And when we are in alignment to the distillation and grokking, is a term, or just true cognizing in our inner space, then we are able to understand love, and attaining that love is a way of transcending our experience or evolving to the next structure, and then the next structure. And what happens is, if you don't have the structure and you receive higher energy, higher sources of truth, because ultimately we're all attaining or traveling to ever more increasing levels of intensity of light, um, originating to the source, the primal source, the Om, or whatever is resonant to you in your traditions as you currently understand. As we're getting more and more to that existential truth, we may receive certain bits of it in unique experiences, most notably in psychedelic experiences, altered states, etc. And it can unground you because it's breaking the structure, and you can do it through an external substance, which creates a lot of other issues with it. And at its core, it's fundamentally challenging to internalize everything, or you can attain it through discipline and creating structure, like the yogic structure, to attain samadhi and understanding of um, of this truth, of this energy. But if you don't have the groundedness, the structure to contain it, it will unground you, which it's supposed to do, because it's elevating you to another dimension or another structural composition of complexity, to be able to contain in your mental mind the framework for synthesizing what you just experienced. So, for example, as a child, maybe you were told the structure in a Judeo-Christian society of, when you get married, it's um, husband and wife, male and female, till death do you part, and that's the structure you have. And then all of a sudden, you observe your friends' parents getting divorced, or your parents get divorced. Then you have a breaking of that structure, and you're in a bit of panic or chaos, really, of um, entropy, of disorder, where you have to up level your mental modeling, your consciousness, to comprehend a structure and an understanding as to why that happened. And you can do that without fully distilling it and fully embodying the lessons. And then that creates a trauma or a blockage, a samskara in you, um, that prevents you from actually fully understanding the love that is behind the reason why that happened. And so it's really understanding that there's a structure in order to contain the amount of truth that you can handle in your reality. And as you grow and as you seek ascension or higher orders of consciousness, what has to happen is the structure that you are in eventually has to break, or you have to, through experience. It's the only way that you can break the structures, that my experience no longer holds the structure I have in integrity. My experience moves me out of being in integrity with the structure that I've been living by. And so then it forces, in this cognitive dissonance, beautiful way of finding an explanation for why that previous structure was not the structure for you to live by. And in this case, in your quest for a new restructuring, you can be met with delusion or people preying upon you. Um, so we'll just stick with delusion and preying upon is just delusion, right? You can try to restructure things in a delusional way, in a way that doesn't hold. And what I mean by doesn't hold is there's aspects of life that aren't fully integrated in this new structure. For example, in that case of divorce, it could be that um, you now recognize that marriage isn't as sacred as it is, or that's what you say, and so the union between a man and a woman is not as important, and so I'm creating a structure where intimate relationships are fine, but you don't have to get married, and so you can have multiple intimate relationships. Um, that's a structure, and that's a totally okay structure. But is it in alignment with where you're currently at in your journey or your recognition? Look at the output of what that structure holds. Just like water, you put water into a pot, it becomes the pot. You put water into a bowl, it becomes the bowl. So you then say, I am ready, life, to receive greater amounts of energy in this new container that has been created. And then let's see what happens. And it could be that that new container holds weight in that dimension of that new restructuring that you've had, or it could lead to even more dysfunction. So, in order to reference and check if this new structuring works based off of your experience and your new hypothesis or your new structuring, you have to look at the outcomes. And one of the best ways to make sure or to check is, are you able to consciously recognize why it is that the structure itself broke and why it is that you have created this new structure and the implications of this new structure as much as you can? And then the second part is, are you able to love the experience you just went through? Because you can transcend into a new structure and cognize it consciously, but not fully embody it. And that happens a lot of times. And the reference point is there love for that experience, that breaking of the structuring, the crystallization of your framework of reality? And if there is love, then that's a beautiful sign of saying, okay, let's move forward and see what else is there. But if there's not love and appreciation and gratitude, a love for what happened, then there's still work to be done. There's still trauma. There's still rabbit holes to go through. And some of the foundational understandings of what needs to happen are a recognition of going within to start with everything. Otherwise, you're bouncing off other people's energies, other realities, other walls, and it's just too much noise to actually understand what is your true structure. And we've gone through life this way. And it's how we've survived. We basically had to come out into a society and figure out how to live. We couldn't just say, oh, let me sit on like this one thing and be totally fine and grow in that dimension. You have to have a full system, right? A 360 view of life. Um, you have to survive, right? You have to live and move forward. So when you look at the fractalization of life, it's very clear that feminine energy is really that life-giving energy um, that structures itself in a more masculine way, and you evolve your consciousness through this. And what has happened is there hasn't been an active practice or conversation of this because no one's really known it or made it publicly available because I don't know, it's pretty hard to do. It's pretty hard to distill and synthesize it to a 4-year-old, right? I mean, like that's why in services they kind of have the kids version, kids cartoon of these lessons of that lesson, and they're still saying the lesson, but it's not very much being internalized. And so that's one. Another one is understanding love and the dimensions of love and what love actually is. It's been so skewed in society for it to be focused on like romantic love and physical love that it's challenging to understand all dimensions of love and how actions that could be perceived as punitive or wrong are actually acts of love for you to learn. So that's got to be understood, and that is its own little crazy category. Um, then is understanding the nature of structure. What is structure? How do you perceive structure? Is your life structured? Do you have the discipline and the will persistence to be structured, to test out your hypotheses, to be able to create a structure for you to grow? Otherwise, if you just go with the flow in an unstructured way, you'll never be able to be grounded enough in the feedback of whether or not your structure is beneficial for your conscious growth or not. And everyone has their own trajectory and pace on what they want. And perhaps their structure is not to grow so fast. And then having a very loose and open structure without actually being very structured is fine. But as kung fu masters and you know um, experts in any field says, it's not about doing you know 1,000 things 5 times. It's about doing 5 things 1,000 times. You will never be able to grow and understand from an internal perspective how to upgrade and structure yourself if you don't embody structure, if you don't like it, if you don't receive it, or if you're too expansive of it, because you have something called the feedback loop and life. You know, there's cycles, right? I mean, there's real estate cycles, economic cycles, financial cycles, and then society cycles and cycles of the earth, and there's cycles, right? Those are feedback mechanisms. So if you are excited about conscious expansion, you need to have structure in this feedback loop. And by the way, as we are navigating through space-time, we are being exposed to ever more needs of structure to be able to handle and sustain life of the planet. A different story. But the main point is, it is our moral imperative to become more conscious. And that's a powerful statement, but so true. So, the next part is consciousness. What is consciousness? Understanding connections, synapses in the brain, neural connections, a recognition and understanding of the implications and layers on the multiple dimensions of reality of both your thoughts, words, actions, deeds, and feedback you are receiving from your environment. So as a baby, maybe all you thought of was your bed and your mom. And then you grew up a little bit, and then it was your room. Then maybe a little bit it was your house, and then your community. And maybe all you were focused on was the need for food and shelter. So you just cried and you got that, right? And then you grew up, you grew a little bit, your consciousness grew a little bit. Oh, and by the way, growing up age-wise has no correlation, none whatsoever, to consciousness, right? So you can have 60-year-olds who haven't developed consciousness past a certain age, primarily because of a very traumatic experience. At the same time, they could be very strong in one aspect of consciousness and very imbalanced in another because their new restructuring when they had that transcendent experience structured in a way that created that imbalance, and they refused to face that fear, that trauma, to release it, to restructure it. So then the next and final component is energy. And the energy that flows through you as electrical beings from the vibrational frequency view of the universal field of quantum mechanics, of quarks, of manifesting from the unmanifest to the manifest. And I will stop there because there's a few things, but those are the main components. Oh, the final one is energy, right? So to receive energy, you have to be able to contain it more and more. And so we'll get to that later, but I have to go. So with this, I greet you with truth. That's all it is, straight up truth. All this other stuff is just getting you to the core truth. All right, bye. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. See if you like it. See what you don't get. The challenging thing is to distill it into words that people understand. Because communication is a demonstration, a grokking of the ability to relay what is happening in a manner that others can understand at any and all levels of consciousness. And that's really my passion and purpose here. It's to create the structures to receive higher levels of energy, to increase my consciousness, and to break the structure, to increase my consciousness, to receive and understand greater levels of love, to then reconstruct a greater framework and foundation, and then move forward from there to receive even stronger levels of energy, to ascend. And through communication, I am receiving and delivering and demonstrating to myself and others how they can do it. And as a testing mechanism for whether or not I truly comprehend what the heck I'm saying, or if it's just a bunch of nonsense and jibber jabber and delusion. Because a lot of people who are ungrounded might have access to high amounts of energy, but they don't have the structure to convey it because they're not grounded to convey it into words that people understand. And sometimes they build entire mental models and structures that exist in the ether that they play in, and they feel very much aligned with reality, but to the outside observer, they're ungrounded. They're too etheric. They're too abstract. And so, in order for us to demonstrate our groundedness, is to be able to talk to any and all levels of consciousness to convey the message. And one of the primary modes of doing so is looking at commerce, business, what people care about, and connectivity to communities. So Disney, in their movies, in their explanation, and their archetypal mastery of narrative, character structure, and plot, is a beautiful demonstration of how a core intellectual bit of information can be disseminated in many ways. Now, of course, there might be some gross abnormalities and skewings and delusions and blah blah blah, corruption, da 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 behind it. But it's a beautiful framework. So think about Disney when you think about truth as the structure for delivering truth for all levels to comprehend and understand. Because we all have an inner child. We all do. So that may be the perfect place to connect with the world, is through that inner child. And if our structure is unable to connect with others, if our discourse is unable to connect the inner child, then we haven't done our work, because we haven't allowed for the mastery of the experience to be fully grokked. Because children at the core demonstrate truth because they know no different until traumatic experiences come, until they're patterned otherwise. So when the highest conscious thinkers can convey their principles in full alignment and authenticity to children, when that happens, we have been able to come full circle and create that catalyst and that flywheel effect. Because then you don't have to force someone to go through all these different life experiences or structures or institutions to be able to actually understand what the heck this person's saying. And what we've done as a society is we've branched off to far reaches of consciousness through a very specific, focused, structural framework to extract incredible insights. But it is through the synthesis and the identification of truth in all of those aspects that is what's able to be distilled into the narratives, the story, the ability to relay the information to the children and to the inner child. Which means it's got to be fun. Because a child is not going to listen to some boring stuff. A child is not going to listen to multi-syllabic words. They got a short attention span. They are the best. They're the best. I mean, they are what we are here to create. So, with that, during Cosmic Cliff Notes, there will be times of intense attempts to verbalize in a clear, articulated manner what is coming through or what is wishing to be relayed. And once that information is synthesized, the fun really comes, because the hard effort, and it's a solidly challenging, energetic effort, by the way, that is flowing in and through me to ground it. Or another way of saying it is my brain is working really hard, my nervous system is working really hard in these moments, because it's almost like a computer going up to like 100% processing on this one task, kind of like a cryptocurrency mining machine, Bitcoin mining machine. And we're going to put all resources to this focus. And we're not going to say some jibber jabber, and we're not going to say some delusional stuff, and we're not going to cheat by saying some really fancy, etheric, some really fancy words that no one knows about, right? Because that happens too, is people lean into their ability to speak very eloquently to hide the fact that they don't actually grasp the core truth. So there might be times where that comes through with me. The intention is to relay everything to its essence, to truth, to the inner child, to simplicity, structure, and coherence, to be able to receive greater amounts of energy to synthesize through the structure, to have those transcendent experiences that force the breaking of the structure because it no longer aligns with the reality, to do the inner work and processing, to expand the consciousness, to do the inner work, to observe and fully embody love in that experience, to grok how to create a new structure and framework to receive greater energy, and the cycle continues. And this is the fractal. This is the core fractal of life, of existence. And it's regenerative, and it is prevalent amongst many leaders to see how they've utilized this methodology and where they get pulled away, or where the energy gets too intense, or where the light gets so much that it shines on their darkness that they don't want to face. So that is a really powerful understanding of what is going through here. So with that, I leave you with truth.